Hello, everybody. On this edition of Fulfords World, we speak with Matt Lange, an artist, Grammy-nominated music producer, and occasional DJ currently signed to deadmau5's Mau5trap label. We talk about production, Berklee College of Music, and Matt's upcoming releases and live dates, among other things. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast through iTunes or our YouTube channel so you'll be updated and in tune with future episodes. Now, without further delay, here's Matt Lange. Okay, everybody, Matt Lange is here with us, the producer, Grammy-nominated artist, and everything. Matt, why don't you give everybody a rundown of your various titles real quick?
Oh, God. I am indeed a record producer. I am an artist. I am a DJ. I am a sound designer. I am a cat dad and an aficionado of beer.
Of beer. Dude, sounds great. Sounds great. And were those all taking place at the same time, or were you like a cat dad first before the beer aficionado and sound designer, or did they all come up at the same kind of time?
I would say the music was first.
Okay.
You know, that came definitely as a child. The beer came later, and then the cats came when I moved out to LA when I was 25. So that was 5-6 years ago.
Oh, man, perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. So now you're on Mau5trap, the label,
Yeah.
and before you were on Anjuna Beats. So what was going on before that? Like, how did you come up? Were you like in a rock band first? Because I know you played, a great guitar and mean axe. Or did you were you in rock bands first, or did you do electronic from the jump?
Yeah, I'm definitely a rock guy at heart. I grew up listening to metal and grunge. I mean, I was a child of my formative years when I really started listening to music. That was really the early 90s. So I think the first CD I ever bought was Nevermind.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and so consequently, that was always my roots. And like me and my best friend Sam at the time, we used to kind of torture the babysitter by playing Metallica and the Black Album, and then Megadeth's Rust in Peace. But we were in New York, so there was also some Busta Rhymes Woo-Ha in there also.
Oh yeah.
So that was kind of the roots of it all, though. And then I sung in a boy choir for 7 years. But when my voice changed when I was 12 or 13, that's when I got my first real guitar, I think for my 13th birthday. Yeah.
Oh, perfect.
And from there, it was just, obsession, basically.
Yeah.
And then, so I played in like a hardcore band. I don't know. We called ourselves like Teenage Innovators of post hardcore or something. But
oh, perfect.
really, we were really into like the New York City hardcore scene and what was known as screamo on the East Coast, which was very different than the like the thrice kind of screamo out here on the West Coast.
Sure.
So that was kind of our thing, like that mixed with like Explosions in the Sky or a Mogwai style post rock.
Oh, very cool.
So that was that.
And then when did you transition over into the more electronic-based stuff?
That kind of happened, or I started getting interested in it because when I was in the band, I wanted to learn how to record demos, so that way I could, just record ideas, and I would just do it into my laptop. I got like a Behringer V-amp. It was basically a Line 6 pod, but cheaper. And I would just plug my guitar in there, and I would record directly into the mic input of this old Sony laptop I had or something like that, and right into, I think it was Acid Pro. So it wasn't Sony Acid yet. It was whatever made it before. And and then I'd program like really basic drum grooves in Fruity Loops 1 or Fruity Loops 2. I mean, it was a really early version, and I would just export those out, throw that into Acid, and then record guitar over that. So that was kind of the beginning of it. And then concurrently, when I was in high school, I got introduced to music like Aphex Twin and Boards of Canada. And so I got really into the IDM thing and Warp Records. And then there was Nine Inch Nails. And I didn't really get Nails when they first came out. I remember when, Downward Spiral came out and, Closer was always on the radio. And I remember, Weird Al Yankovic parodying it. But it just didn't hit me. And then the Fragile came out, and then when the Fragile came out, it just the way that album was orchestrated, composed, arranged, everything. The production on it is still. I mean, I listen to it now. Actually, I love it. It's one of my favorite records ever. And that really incorporated a lot of cool electronic production, but also within the context of rock songs. And
Oh yeah.
so that really that was really influential for me back then, and I mean it still is, honestly, to this day, especially now with the way that whole camp, the way they were utilizing sound design as well as the songwriting, the production tricks, everything is just this giant blender where really anything went, anything was allowed. At least, from the out. I don't know, obviously, what it was like to be in the room with Trent, but from a listener perspective and from like a musician and sound designer perspective, it just sounds like there's so much freedom in the sense of what you can try.
Sure.
And that's liberating.
Yeah, man. Like 9 Inch Nails, for me, it's like, I'm like, is that a guitar? And then I look it up online, and like there's an interview with Trent Reznor, and he says, oh, no, that's a synth.
Mm-hmm.
And then I listen to things, I'm like, is that a synth? And then I read an interview with Charlie Clouser. He goes, actually, that was a guitar. Yeah. I'm like, I can't even guess the instrument.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah.
So I have a couple of Twitter questions.
Yeah, go for it.
We could intersperse throughout. Somebody asked, what major did you take in Berkeley, and was it worth it? Berkeley, for those that don't know, for the few people that don't know that are listening, Berkeley is a music conservatory based in Boston.
So my major was called music synthesis. It's since then, because that was 10 years ago, or I graduated nearly 10 years ago. That
oh, wow.
Yeah, I know, right? It's been a minute. Now it's been renamed into something I think called electronic production and design, I think. But music synthesis, at least when I was there, it was music production mostly, or actually almost entirely within the digital realm, but there was a lot of composition involved, and there was a lot of writing music for picture, even things like writing music for commercial demos. And then there was also a heavy aspect of sound design, learning how to program synths. I took a sampling class that actually kind of changed my life in a way, where it was the most fun thing, where I had a teacher, Michael Brigida, and what he would do, he would just say, we'd come into class and we'd go into like this little recording room, and he'd have just like a stereo pair of KM 184s in there. And I think the first class, we all put Pop Rocks, the candies, in our mouths.
Yeah.
And just all let it crackle. And there were 12 of us in there. So you had this whole sea of, it almost sounded like granular synthesis, this like crackly Pop Rocks thing. And we recorded it all. And then, and every week it would be, you'd record something different. And then your homework would be, okay, take the recordings we made, throw it into Contact, and come back next week with 12 different instruments you created out of these recordings.
Wow.
So that was really my first foray into sound design in that capacity. And that, to this day, is still, a huge part of my workflow, where I always am recording things, be it, I mean, I haven't done Pop Rocks in a while, but but it's always recording things and manipulating them in any kind of digital means. But typically I still do like to actually have most of my sounds come, they don't start in the box. They always come from outside, and then they usually just get really heavily manipulated inside.
Oh, that's cool. Man, that must take a lot of time and detail,
Yeah. It does.
But like, I'm sure there's a couple dope sounds that took 5 seconds to make,
Yeah.
And other ones that took 5 hours or 5 days,
I know,
messing around back
and sometimes the ones that take the longest end up just being so unexciting.
Yeah, like they're under the mix, you could hardly hear.
Yeah, I know. It's just not even worth it, and you just get you get lost in the void sometimes, and you can't see the forest for the trees anymore. And I mean that goes the same with sound design as it does to writing a song, doing a track, anything.
Yeah, and that's a good segue. How does producing sound design beds and stuff differ from how does your workflow differ from doing songs as opposed to like straight up pure sound design?
One definitely influences the other, but it's definitely it's a mental split for me because I think because my background in music is really traditional. I will always think in terms of writing for the most part as having an instrument in my hands, be it a guitar, a piano, singing, what have you. And then the sound design to me is it. While it's of course it's of course creative, but it's definitely a
Mm.
lot more technical. And for me, it's not as emotionally expressive. Whereas
Oh.
certainly, I mean, the voice is the most expressive instrument we have, in my opinion. I mean, it's amazing. Nothing else is like that. And a guitar for me has always just been that's like my home base. It just feels right when I have a guitar in my hand. And
Mm.
it's the most comfortable thing for me to write with melodically, also.
I
Sound,
see.
but doing the sound design thing is exciting because for me, it's much more right brained. And I like that. I like getting really nerdy and really technical and trying to, create something new or push an envelope that I didn't even know was there. That to me is
Uh-huh.
really exciting. But it's very rare. Like I've never created a sound and be like, "Oh my god, that's going to make somebody cry."
Yeah,
Unless like, "Oh my god,
totally.
that is so obnoxious." They're going to cry because it hurts their ears. And
Yeah.
that's a different thing too. And sometimes you actually want to do that, but it's definitely it's a different thought process for me.
Oh man, that that's so cool. Like sound design, like building sounds from nothing essentially. Like you start with like just a basic waves or samples, right? Is that how you approach it?
I mean, yeah, usually I start with a microphone.
Okay.
Um, or in the case of, the hardware synths, then it could. I mean, it's never really just a waveform usually, because I mean that's kind of easy. Um, I tend to often just make a lot of. Sorry, I'm like looking at the modular right now, trying to conceptualize how to say this. No, I make a lot of patches just on the big modular synth I have, and a lot of it is just experimentation and kind of um, like feeling away and feeling around in the dark, not really knowing where you're going until you find it.
Mm,
And that's what that thing is great for, is just the sheer amount of happy accidents.
sure.
But then a lot of stuff is much more directed, where I'm putting a microphone in front of something, and then that to me is usually more exciting than anything synthetic because it's just sonically more interesting to me. And I would rather, I mean, you can kind of synthesize it, but you know, it's way easier to take a grapefruit and squeeze the insides with your fingers and be able to do that in, 2 minutes and have all these cool, like, gushy, gory, squishy sounds. I mean,
Yeah.
you could spend 3 hours synthesizing that. You could,
Or you could just play it in.
or you can
Yeah.
just do it. And I mean, I like the sound of microphones. I really do. I like the sound of there being a natural space. I like the control of just being able to instantly touch something, and it's why I'll always take an actual instrument over a soft synth or anything like that, because yeah, I mean, you can click notes and you can play it on your MIDI keyboard. Not the same. Like I need to be able to bend that string. I need to, I have to feel it.
Oh,
Yeah.
totally. Yeah. And I think it comes through in your music as well, because I mean, a lot of your songs are 7, 8, 9 minutes long,
Ugh.
but they're so interesting. Like so was Injustice for All, though. Back in the
Yeah.
day, but they kept it interesting, so they don't seem like 7, 8, 9 minutes long. Like you're listening to it, and then you look up, and like 6.5 minutes went by, and you didn't even realize. You know what I mean? Because there's always things going on, like the interesting textures and sounds. It sounds like there's another dimension in the music, and I think that's because of the analog instruments and sampling and stuff like that.
Thanks, man. I think, part of it is that. I think a lot of it too is just dynamics. You know, if
Oh, cool.
if a 3 minute long song can sound really long if it's just the same, it has the same intensity all the way through. But you can make much longer compositions when you space things out, when you give things to breathe or give things room to breathe.
Mhm.
And you can do that, dynamically, arrangement wise, instrumentally, melodically. I mean, there's so many ways you can kind of skin the same animal. So when you know combine a lot of different ideas, then it becomes this puzzle. And you know, how can you segue between four different sections, different melodies, instrumentation, rhythms, and if you try to do it quickly, it's going to sound rushed. It'll sound awkward. But
Huh.
you can segue into things, and I think a lot of it also is. I mean, I love progressive rock and just progressive music, progressive metal, anything like that in general. And there is a lot of there's a lot of space, you know, and they take their time usually to get from one place to another. And if that means having to write an interlude to connect A to B, then that's what
Sure.
happens. And I think, you know, a big part of that was, you know, as a guitarist, what really got me into all that stuff was the sheer technicality of, you know, bands like Dream Theater, where as a
Mm.
guitarist, it's it was unfathomable how someone could actually be that good at the instrument. and
Oh
and
yeah.
that's inspiring, you know, when you're a kid and you're just obsessed with something, you know, you just suck it all in, and that's all you breathe every day. So when that happened, I got really big into Dream Theater, and of course like the classic bands like Floyd and Crimson. Rush was a big one, and then I found Tool, and that
Oh
and
yeah.
that was kind of the end. You know, that was like, oh fuck me, this is how you make a song that long that sounds cohesive, that isn't the song structures aren't, you know, A through Z like you'd have with a Dream Theater song, or you know, anything like that. You know, these are actually well written, beautifully constructed songs, but contextualized in a way where there is a lot of space, and the dynamics that they use, the way they write their records, it's not like anyone else. And on top of that, they were the first ones who, for me, really utilized odd time signatures in a way that sounded really natural.
Oh yeah, because they groove. You
Yeah,
know.
and I mean, like, don't get me wrong, like I will forever love like the Dream Theater style 1516, or like I
Mm.
remember like the end of Home is 1916, and I remember learning how to play that when I was in high school and thinking it was the coolest
Oh
thing
my
ever.
gosh.
But there's something about, you know, when you groove out 11/4, it just it feels so cool. And when you can make an odd time signature sound natural, that I get so excited about that, like still to this day. And then especially if you make it got a polyrhythm, and you have, you know, a few different things going on, so every whatever 44 bars suddenly they all come back together again, and you have this tension of just timing that gets further and further apart, so that when it finally does come together, it feels like you've just come home. And it's amazing, you know. Crimson did it really well. God, what was that song called? um, Not Flame by Flame or Face by Face, Frame by Frame.
Frame by frame.
Yeah, I mean the songs.
I'm gonna bookmark
Oh
that.
my god, it's so cool. The song's in seven, but I think it wasn't. Who's the other guitarist? There was Fripp, and then oh man, I'm missing it right now. He was an important guy, another from another big band, but in the verse, he's playing 7/8, and then they're basically playing the two guitars are playing the same ostinato more or less, but
Sure.
the second guitarist, who I'm not gonna be able to forgive myself for forgetting his name,
No, all I remember was Fripp. Yeah, that's the one
but
that I was gonna
well, no,
say.
the other was just as important. But he
Hmm.
so he's playing in 7/8, but then Fripp is playing 13/16, and it's
Oh
the
my
same
gosh.
ostinato except the last note has been removed. So
Oh
so the
man.
melodies themselves go in and out of phase with each other. It's
Oh, that's so
it's
cool.
really
I've
cool.
never heard the song, but I'm gonna check it out. I'll put it in the show notes for
Yeah,
everybody,
it's on
so they could have a listen.
the album Red.
Okay.
Yeah,
Frame by
it's
frame.
so cool. But the thing that's really interesting about it, you know, it's a song. It's not just, you know, some like gifted instrumentalists just, you know, wanking around on their instruments. Like these guys have used, you know, some fairly sophisticated musical ideas within the context of a song that actually is accessible. And that to me is the genius of it, because it's kind of like, you know, you need a little bit of sugar to help the medicine go down, and they've snuck in these complex ideas within the context of something that's accessible, so that when the listener actually hears it, they don't, unless they're, you know, really trained and they know what to listen for, they don't know what's making them feel that way, but it's there and it's affecting them. And that to me is amazing, you know?
Yeah, and then I if I remember correctly now, if this is wrong, I'm sure a lot of my listeners will take pride in correcting me,
Yeah.
you know. But I believe Kanye West sampled a King Crimson song for not, I think for the album before Yeezus, he sampled something from King Crimson. So a lot of like the rap producers and pop producers find these weird time signature but cool sounding things, and then they chop them up, rearrange them again, and then they put them into a pop song, and makes it like a really unique sounding pop song, which isn't, you know, pop's not really known for its intricate time signatures, but they take stuff, you know, and rearrange it. And like I've been trying to sample Jesus Christ Superstar since I was 16 years old.
Right.
And one day I'm going to get it. One day I'm going to because I don't want to go for like the obvious bow bow down
Right.
like the first song.
course.
That's too easy. It's you know, you could just sample that. That's what people expect. But I want to go for some weirdness. But one day, like there's countless times like you get home, it's 3 a.m. and you're not ready to go to sleep.
Yep.
Let's load in some of that that Andrew Lloyd Webber and see what we could do with it. You know?
Makes sense.
see what we could do with it. Oh, I have another. Oh, there's an email that came through. I have another Twitter question from this guy Tommy.
Okay.
His handle is Tom4BS.
Okay.
So I hope he's not trying to BS us with this question. Who on the Mau5trap label are you most impressed with from a production standpoint, and why?
I guess Joel, Deadmau5. He's the one I mean, I know of that whole roster, I've spent the most time with him. Second to that is Atlas, Jeff. Jeff and I have spent a lot of time together, but the rest of the crew I actually don't really know very well. They're, for the most part, a lot younger than me. So even though most of them live in LA, we don't hang out, you know? Like it's nothing against them. It's just, you know, we're just doing different things. And I mean, I kind of just live in my own little bubble all the time, and I like my bubble. So it doesn't really, I don't venture out, you know, too often from that unless I go on the road. So for production wise though, yeah, I would definitely say Joel.
And what about Joel? Like, I mean, I've watched the live stream archives of you and he in the studio, and I signed up for the Deadmau5 Masterclass.
Oh yeah,
which is awesome. Like I got home from was it Asia? Yeah, I got home from Asia and I was super jet lagged, like over Christmas and New Year's. So you know, I was waking up like at 4 a.m, and I'm like, you know what? Let's just buy this Deadmau5 Masterclass, and it was really worth it.
Yeah,
I really dug it.
He's really talented. From a writing perspective to, you know, his production, I mean, the way he produced things changed the sound of dance music. I mean, how many copycats do we still have to this day trying to do what he was doing in 2007, which is funny. But no, the thing I actually like the most about Joel's work, it's not his production. I like his chord choices, his melodic choices, and he's got a really good ear. And he's another one where, you know, he uses some deceptive little tricks every now and then where, you know, some of his melodies are an isorhythm of 5/8 over 4/4. And, you know, he sneaks things in. So it's more sophisticated than people often realize.
Oh, sure. And I like he does the whole live thing himself. He renders all of his visuals.
Oh yeah. I mean, he is, yeah. No, he's his own monster. He's on a different wavelength for sure.
Yeah, that's wild. That's wild. I met him in Vegas with Steve Aoki,
Yeah.
and I accidentally sat on his jacket. So Joel, if you're listening to this, I'm the guy that sat on your jacket, and I apologize. I didn't know it was your jacket. I shouldn't have sat on anybody's jacket. You know what I mean? It was hanging over a couch. Um, but that was a few years ago when like it was some like holiday weekend when every single DJ was in Vegas at the same time.
Oh, sure.
You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
like Memorial Day or some wildness like that. Let's pick another question. Oh, here's a good question from Twitter. Music Biz Playboy writes, yeah, what a name, right? I want to ask him how he got that name. How do you start and finish a song efficiently, time-wise, without sacrificing quality?
Whatever it takes.
So like late nights, early mornings.
Yeah. I mean, I find personally when I really get in the zone with something, the rest of my life kind of falls apart until I finish it, and I don't really do anything else. Consequently, I usually, if it's an instrumental track, I'll have it done within 5 days. If I'm doing, if it's a vocal thing and I'm singing and doing all the production and everything, which is just a whole another animal, then it's probably 2 weeks.
Oh, wow.
But I don't worry about how long it's going to take. I find the longer it takes, usually the further away from the actual idea of what it's supposed to be I get. So I try to just power through it and just be in the moment really as consistently as I can for the sake of that one song.
Sure. And is it something where like if a song is half done, you don't want to go on vacation,
Oh
you
God,
don't want to
no,
go
no,
on a trip.
you can't.
Yeah, no. You don't want to relax. Like I can't.
No.
Something's half done. I can't put it to the back of my mind.
No, it's like when you're onto something that is important, you just don't do anything else. Like you don't pay your bills, you don't go outside, you just forget, and 2 weeks later you come back and there are 50 dishes in the sink and there's laundry all over the floor and you have a beard and it's like you forget, or it's not even that you forget, you just don't care.
Yeah.
And, for that brief moment in time, this is the most important thing in your life and you're not going to do anything but that. And you're going to do it for however long it takes to get it done.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
man. I feel you, especially like with me because I do music and I pitch syncs.
Yeah.
So some days I'm like I just want to do music all day and I don't want to make one phone call. And other days I'm like I just want to make 100 sales calls in. Like dude, it's weird. Like I want to make 100 sales calls in a row.
Yeah.
I don't even want to open my laptop.
Yeah.
But I can't. Like I don't have the like you know what I mean? I can't. What's the word? I can't avoid my responsibilities. So sometimes I'm making sales calls when all I want to do is do music. Sometimes I'm doing music when all I want to do is like call Singapore, like find some ad agency in Singapore that needs music. Because it's late at night. It's like 1 a.m. It's like I call Singapore.
Right.
But I know that feeling. All too.
Yeah, it's just like it's the demon inside. You have to exercise.
Yeah, man. Oh my God. Do you So your latest release is Punish Me, right? Do you have anything else coming out this year, early next year that you could talk about that's slated?
Yeah. So I'm actually doing I'm working on the follow-up to that right now. And ultimately, I mean, this style, this like electronic rock, whatever you want to call it, this is all the next album, and the next album is called Calliope. And
Okay.
so basically the way I'm doing it is I'm just kind of releasing it piece by piece as I write it. And
Cool.
Punish Me was the first of that cycle. And these first two EPs, Punish Me and then the next one, they still have songs that were written originally that was funny. Originally they were written about a year and a half ago, which it's funny because like I listen to the stuff I'm writing now and then I look at the stuff I wrote back then and I was in a much darker place in my personal life then. So it feels kind of funny to put the stuff out right now. But at the same time, you have to, it means too much not to. And then the responses I've gotten from it have also been some of the most sincere, um, both heartbreaking and very moving responses and emails that I've probably ever received. So,
Oh wow.
yeah, well, I mean, this is, some of this stuff is pretty emotionally vulnerable. And
Mhm.
that connects, that connects to people who are going through hardship. And this was all mostly, I mean, a lot of this was breakup stuff. So it was, emotional hardship. But it's a pretty universal theme. And, people connect to that. And I guess some of these songs just, it resonated in the right way. So consequently, the response I've gotten from, I guess, the ones who have taken the time to reach out, it's it's a lot more powerful than the usual dance music stuff, which it's cute and it's sweet and like people are like, oh my god, I'm crying because I heard the song, and it's like that's not the same. There are no lyrics in here that touched you, like it, and maybe that's my own ignorance. I just don't. For me, dance music doesn't make me feel anything aside from ideally the need to dance. But it doesn't hit me on an emotional level. It doesn't gut me from the inside out. But the kind of music I choose to listen to, for the most part, recreationally, is more like singer songwriter, kind of emotional things. And
Mm.
that is, I love that. That's how I feel connected, I think, to other artists. And
Mm.
I mean, I think, we're all trying to feel connected in some way. I mean, when you're an artist, I think most of us feel pretty alien to the rest of the world and isolated. And I think you see that in your art. So then when you see yourself in someone else's art, that's when you become attached to it.
Mm.
And
Oh, that's interesting.
yeah. And that's when, so I'm hoping, what it seems is that, the response from this stuff, which is a lot more personal, has cultivated that kind of response within people. And I love that. You know, it it's a
Yeah.
lot scarier, and it's certainly a lot more open, but it feels like it really matters, and it feels like you're affecting people's lives on a deeper way, which isn't the goal, but because really, I mean, I'm just doing it for myself because I need to, but the fact that other people can find some kind of solace in that, that's amazing to me.
Yeah, and if it's from the heart, other people recognize it like a beacon, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
For lack of a better word. So yeah, but before we wrap up, let people know if you're gonna are you doing any shows this year, and where
Yeah.
any more shows this year, and where can people find you online to check out your stuff?
So show wise, 2 weeks from now, I'm in Toronto, and we're doing this 10-year anniversary Mau5trap party, and that's at a place called Rebel, I believe, and that's a big show. That's with Dead Mouse and I think Rez and Atlas and a few other artists on the Mau5trap roster.
Oh
And
wow.
then a week and a half or 2 weeks after that, I'm playing in Costa Mesa,
Oh
yeah,
okay.
in Orange County, in a place called the Cove. And then a couple weeks after that, I'm down in San Diego. And then I believe a couple weeks after that, I'm in New York at Output. Um,
Okay.
those are the rough. I believe that's the thing. I actually probably shouldn't have said some of that because I don't think they haven't announced it, but whatever. That's where I'm gonna be. Finding me online. My website is mattlange.net, not .com, because someone else beat
Mm.
me to it. But
Oh no.
it's a long story. There's a photographer whose name is also Matt Lange, and
Oh, I
yeah,
see.
and so we've been competing. But it's funny, we're both artists, so we've been
Yeah.
competing for the online spaces and all the social medias for a decade now. So
That's
I got
funny.
Twitter, but he got Instagram. So my Twitter, so that's a segue. So my Twitter is just Matt Lange, but my Instagram is Matt_Lang. So yeah, it's pretty funny. But
And I'll have this in the show notes for everybody
yeah,
to
yeah, for
to,
sure.
to click and stuff.
So
That's dope,
yeah,
man.
man. So that's the gist.
Oh, that's real cool. Well, dude, thanks again for doing this. It was a lot of great information. I'm stoked I get to listen to this a couple more times when I'm, doing the post-production. And in the meantime, I'm going to listen to these tracks off Punish Me, available everywhere, right? I'm on Spotify, but it's available.
It's everywhere. Yeah.
Oh, dope. Cool, man. Well, hey, thanks again for doing this. And everybody, as you know, you're listening to Fulfords World. Thanks again for supporting. Be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel and to the podcast channel wherever you're listening to this. All right, everybody. I'll see you later.
Thanks, John.